Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us today. Thank you so much, and happy Friday. The weekend is here. You can all relax, have a drink at the end of the day. Don't pull a Kamala Harris and have a drink while you're at work if you're watching us earlier on in the day, and relax. And just know Christmas is just under 2 weeks away, and President Trump will be back in the White House in just over a month. It feels like forever, but it's coming. The holiday season will come and it will go, and shortly after, President Trump will be our 47th president once again. President Trump yesterday getting the Time Magazine Man of the Year award. We've all been waiting for it. It's nice to see Time Magazine get in line with the American people for once and for all, getting in line with the American people and what matters to America and what makes America great. President Trump also at the New York Stock Exchange. First president to do so since Ronald Reagan, since the mid-1980s. And you got to see the reaction from the traders on the floor, the people on the floor, people like Jim Cramer running up to him, trying to get an interview. The man is as popular as ever. In my opinion, he's the most popular man on this planet. And you can go ahead and check out the reaction from some of the people, even the Marxist Left running to run to President Trump's side at this point. Everyone wants to be in good graces, but I think President Trump sees through the BS of who the good people are, who the manipulators are, and who the bad folks still are. Folks, our guest today is the great Roger Stone, weekly guest here on the Great America Show, great American, host of the Stone Zone podcast. You catch him each and every night on Rumble or thestonezone.com. Roger, it's great to have you. I feel like I say this every single week. It's great to have you back with us on the Great America Show. I sometimes often think that we're going to run out of things to talk about, but it seems we're just getting started. President Trump yesterday at the New York Stock Exchange ringing in the bell. I mean, everything's so monumental. Time Magazine Person of the Year, Roger. The thing that just keeps coming to my mind, and I tweeted this out because it's so, I think, relevant as to right now. The folks who called him Hitler, Roger, for the last 9 years, for the last 6 years, for the last 4 years, are now the same ones parading him as a hero. Mark Zuckerberg giving him $1 million. Do you think they really believed he was Hitler? Or do you think they were just catering to a Marxist audience of people who wanted to hear that?
Well, first of all, Zuckerberg is $449 million, because that's what he spent to heist the 2020 election. Mm-hmm. And nobody should be fooled by these Silicon Valley corporate media frauds who are now sucking up to the man they tried desperately to destroy. But look, we are entering the age of Trump. When they put him back on Time Magazine, the only previous president, and he opens the stock exchange, the only previous president having done so being the great Ronald Reagan, because he has such confidence in the Trumpified economy. And this is not like it's pie in the sky. Yeah. He proved in his first term that he knew how to build what was, up until that time, the most robust economy we had ever had, and he can do it again. And this has caused a new optimism in the country. I mean, what a great time to be alive, where you can actually see not only us destroy the Marxist left who just erase the U.S. Constitution, particularly our free speech, but to foment the ideas of freedom and the conservative values that will make America enter a golden age of peace and prosperity and security and justice under Donald Trump.
You know, it's amazing to me, Roger, because if I hated somebody and I didn't like them, I wouldn't want anything to do with them. I would cover them as I cover them, but I wouldn't want to speak with them. I wouldn't want to meet them. But you see, I mean, we obviously saw Joe and Mika Brzezinski, but you look at now at the stock exchange yesterday, Jim Cramer, running up to Trump, trying to get an interview with him. This is a man who went on TV every night. He's going to lose. He's bad for the markets, this, that, blah, 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 all total bullshit. We know him to be an idiot. But these people now are trying to get into his inner circle. I think it's a day late, a dollar short. Do you think President Trump, and we constantly talk about this on the show, Roger, he's far too nice of a man, but don't take him for a fool. Do you think he's going to be fooled by the smoke and mirrors of people like Zuckerberg, like these TV talking heads who really hate him, but are just trying to save themselves now?
I doubt it. Look, he's a cold-eyed realist, and just because he says something nice to Kramer doesn't mean he's going to sit down and do his show. And if these people want to give millions of dollars to help Donald Trump beat them, I think that'd probably be okay with him. Trump's he's a pretty shrewd negotiator, and he does intend, of course, to be president of all the people.
Right.
That includes the Marxist Dems who don't renounce their citizenship. By the way, Robert De Niro said he would leave the country if Trump was elected. I just want to remind him, if he needs a lift to the airport, I am available.
I'm not sure he'd get in the car with Roger Stone. It wouldn't be too much fun for him. It's sad. It's sad to see it. I see Rosie O'Donnell going out there every single day, and I don't know what she's got going on, but she's constantly got open wounds on her face and things. She doesn't look like she's doing well. You look at these people on The View. Can they go another 4 years of Trump derangement syndrome? I feel like, Roger, at the beginning, I thought it was just like an act that these people hated Trump, but it seems like it's actually affecting their health. Can they go another 4 years with this hatred in their bones?
Well, it's not getting any views. There's no market for this hatred.
Right.
Last week, I looked at the ratings, and Ari Melber, who is a great Roger Stone hater, had 26,000 views. I did 5 times that on the Stone Zone, just on Rumble alone, never mind the other platforms where my show can be seen. It's right. Over, and I'm not a big fish in this podcast or this netcast world. But one thing is for sure, and that is power has shifted to the independent media. You see people like James Vanderhei, who was a founder of Politico, now owns Axios, grumbling about the fact that he has competition. We're the real journalists. You can't be a journalist. Only we can be journalists, which is like an old man yelling at the wind. It is over for the numbers at CNN were down already. They're down further. The numbers at MSNBC have taken a nosedive. There is no market for the Trump hate. People like this new sense of optimism. They realize the country has serious problems. But I think this new alliance of Trump and Kennedy is vitally important. I really think not only is Robert Kennedy going to focus on our health, including childhood disease, including the crap that they're putting into our foods to increase their profits, the process by which pharmaceutical drugs are approved to ensure that they're truly safe and effective. But he's also hopefully going to look at the question of the assassination of his uncle, his father, presidential candidate President Ronald Reagan, President Donald Trump. All of these assassinations need to be examined, I think, more closely. Robert Kennedy has been mentioned as potentially heading a commission to do that, declassifying all the documents on all those cases, so we can find out what the American people deserve to know.
A lot to unpack there. You mentioned the word journalist. Obviously, by trade, I'm not a journalist, but Lou Dobbs made me one, and I'm thankful that I didn't go to school to get a journalism degree because it would have been a waste of money. I'll never forget one of the fierce days I was at Fox News. Lou came out to our little work area at Fox. There was about 7 or 8 of us, and he went around asking everybody what they went to school for, and 9 out of 10 people, it was journalism. That one person was poli-sci, and he comes up to me. He said, "What's your degree in?" And I said, "Aeronautical engineering." And Lou, in front of everybody, goes, "John's the only one here with a real degree." And it's true. You go to school for journalism, Roger, to learn what? To learn how to write. I never learned how to write. I learned how to write in college, and Lou taught me how to be an excellent writer. What
you learn in journalism school, same thing you learn in the mainstream media, which is Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward are 2 of the greatest investigative reporters that ever lived. Right. Then you begin to look more closely at the great Robert Woodward of formerly the Washington Post, and you realize he lies about the identity of Deep Throat and Watergate. He omits substantial facts about Watergate, including the fact that he himself is a naval intelligence officer who briefed General Alexander Haig in the Nixon White House. He leaves that part out. We find that he lies in his book about former CIA Director Bill Casey, claiming that he snuck into Casey's hospital room, when Casey was in the hospital for a brain tumor, and that he spoke to Casey at a period that Casey's doctor and his wife say the director had no capacity for speech, and the CIA supplied security showed no breach of the room. He just made the whole thing up. The family of John Belushi, he did a hit book on him. They have all complained about the inaccuracy. So the great Bob Woodward, who they tell you in the journalism schools is this great journalist, the one who said that Donald Trump had multiple communications with Putin since leaving office, which turned out to be false. That Bob Woodward is who they lionize in the journalism schools.
You know, you mentioned Bob Woodward. I haven't heard his name in a long time. I'm on a plane from Lisbon, Portugal 2 weeks ago. I see a guy reading a book, and I was trying to see if this man was American or Spanish to see what he was reading. And he didn't have the cover on the book, Roger. So I look at the binding of the book, and it was, I think it's called The War, Bob Woodward's latest book on Trump. And I sit and I go, these people are even embarrassed to be reading it. You had to take the cover off the book because you didn't want anyone to know what you were reading. I mean,
Woodward's written a bunch of books. They all belong in the fiction section of your Barnes and Noble.
I'm going to grab a book that deserves a little. I have a few of them here. The Trump Century by the great Lou Dobbs. I helped Lou write that book some years ago. It's still on sale. You can go ahead and get your copies of it. But you have so many people now just able to write books, Roger, able to put out whatever the hell they want, and they're getting mad that Elon Musk gives us all a platform to be citizen journalists. This is what we are. We're obviously not journalists by trade, but we have bigger audiences, Roger, than some of these folks. Paul Krugman, one of the great New York Times columnists, economist, calling it quits after 25 years, putting out his last article this week, his last opinion piece titled "Finding Hope in the Age of Resentment," my last column. It's nice to see some of these people, Roger, are heading off into the sunset, and hopefully we never see or hear from them again. But we're still going to have these numbskulls on CNN. Caitlin Collins, I don't know if you saw, but 2 weeks ago, Caitlin Collins out to lunch with one of President Trump's lawyers, Todd Blanche.
Yes.
What was your thoughts on that? I was a little confused.
I'm not sure what Mr. Blanche thought could be gained from a meeting with a jackal like Caitlin Collins. I knew her when she was at Fox. She's basically on the make, and Trump made very short work of her in that town hall. It was one of the great moments of American television where he didn't put up with any of her on-air crap. But look, it is a mistake to think that you can get any of these people to be reasonable, particularly there. She's a knife artist, and she tried to do a job on Trump, and Trump ended up doing a job on her. I'm not sure what Todd Blanche thought was to be gained.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Todd Blanche knew he was having lunch with Caitlin, what's her name? Dylan Mulvaney. I often call Caitlin Collins Dylan Mulvaney because she looks just like the Bud Light transgender, but that's for a different story. There's so much to uncover, Roger. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking with the great Roger Stone. When we come back, I want to talk about Joe Biden last week or yesterday issuing the largest day of pardons in history, but he won't tell us who he pardoned. He's saving that. Now, Roger is a recipient of a pardon. I want to get his thoughts on that. I also wanted to get his thoughts on Christopher Wray, a man who has done so much damage to an institution who Roger has also fallen victim to. Imagine that, folks. You have these institutions that are supposed to be providing truth, justice, and the American way. Instead, they've done nothing but the opposite and destroying democracy. We're coming right back with the great Roger Stone. Stay with us.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98, or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
We're back, folks. We're talking with the great Roger Stone, our favorite weekly guest here on the Great America Show. Roger, I want to get to first Joe Biden yesterday issuing over 1,000 clemencies and 39 pardons, but the White House won't tell us who he's pardoning. Now, for someone who is chastised for receiving a pardon as yourself for doing absolutely nothing wrong, we spoke about this last week. What do you think about that? Why is Joe Biden trying to hide who he's pardoning?
Well, he won't ultimately be able to do that because there is a legal process under which documents have to be filed. Right. I also, if you're given a pardon, must accept the pardon and in writing, and that'll all be a public document. As you may recall, after January 6th, I wrote a letter to the president in which I said, prophetically, the left is going to claim anyone who questions the outcome of this election has committed a crime, when we all understand we have a First Amendment right to say that. Therefore, I suggested a blanket pardon for every Republican member of Congress, every member of his staff, every one of his surrogates, every one of his strong supporters, and so on. He chose not to do that. I turned out to be prophetically right. The prosecutions in Georgia, the prosecutions in Arizona, the prosecutions in Washington, D.C. And clearly the idea has been floated on the left of a pardon for Liz Cheney and Adam Schiff and Jamie Raskin and the rest of the retinue, maybe even Dr. Fauci, perhaps James Comey, or even John Brennan. I would not be shocked to see some sweeping blanket pardon. You do not have to be formally charged with a crime to be pardoned. If you think about it, Richard Nixon had not been charged with any crime when Gerald Ford issued his binding blanket pardon for, quote, any crime he may have committed. That as long as it is past tense, that is perfectly legal. So I expect that you'll see a round of pardons, some of them political, some of them maybe actually worthy, people who have been discriminated against. Look, thanks to the bill that Joe Biden signed, Joe Biden wrote, the 1994 crime bill, and Bill Clinton signed, hundreds of thousands of African Americans have been unfairly incarcerated over the first-time nonviolent crime of small amounts of drugs for personal use. These people belong in drug treatment programs, not in taxpayer-financed incarceration. They have no previous criminal record. They're not a danger really to anyone but themselves. But thanks to those policies, there are people who have served an unfair prison sentence. They ought to be pardoned or their sentences commuted. So until we actually see what Biden has done, we won't know. One thing that I am going to urge the president to do is to follow through on his commitment to pardon the January 6th detainees. If they want, in the end, to just pardon those convicted of nonviolent crimes and commute the sentences of those convicted but unduly longly sentenced and horrifically punished for violent crimes, if they want to just commute those sentences, that too would be justice. But I think this is very important. You'll recall the president said that he would pardon Ross Ulbricht, the inventor of the dark net, when he spoke to the National Libertarian Convention. I expect him to keep that commitment. So, but clearly Biden will set the precedent for what the president has pledged just the other day again to do, which is a pardon for those involved in the January 6th fiasco.
Yeah, I'd even quibble with you on the violent crimes because these people were so overcharged. You don't really know if it was a violent crime anyway. How do you categorize a violent crime, Roger? Climbing over a gate, going through an open window?
I don't disagree. If it were me, I would pardon all of them. But look, I'm not a lawyer, and the president's lawyers will advise him. He'll do the right thing. The key thing is to get people out of this mold-infested, filthy, sewage-stinking gulag in D.C. that they're in, that is far worse than the conditions in any British or Russian prison. This makes Rikers Island look like a dream. So the key is to get them out of that horrific facility.
There's reporting that the Justice Department has declared that January 6th political prisoners who accept a pardon from Donald Trump are making a, quote, confession of guilt in a court filing on Wednesday. Federal prosecutors argued that pardons do not erase convictions as historical facts, but rather necessitate an admission of guilt by the recipient. So does that stand true for Hunter Biden? Is that going to stand true when he eventually pardons Jim Biden?
It actually stands true for everyone. That's why you have to accept the pardon. your alternative is an unfair prison sentence. So it's still an act of mercy and justice. In my case, we now know that my trial judge hid exculpatory evidence from my attorneys that absolutely proved my innocence. We know this because of a lawsuit by BuzzFeed, who sued the Justice Department for the release of the documents that prove that. So it is. I think each one of these things has to be viewed individual. I'm sick of reading Hunter Biden and Roger Stone. Roger Stone and his wife evaded $2.5 million in taxes, but they weren't prosecuted, and Hunter Biden is. False. Not even apples and oranges. I reported every penny, my wife and I, that we ever made, and accurately reported our assets. We simply ran out of money. Hunter Biden failed to report tens of millions of dollars worth of income at all to the IRS. That's tax evasion. Yeah. 3/4 of what I owe the IRS, $2 million, John, 75% of it is interest and penalties.
Yep.
The actual amount of past due tax from 2006 is, I think, less than $400,000. I made payments on it for every year since 2006, 12 months a year. Tell me about tax evasion. It's a joke.
Yeah. Someone we were talking about before the show, a friend of both of ours, Michael Grimm, former congressman, the first and only person, Roger, indicted in New York City for hiring illegal immigrants at his business, hiring off the books dishwashers and busboys. I don't agree with it. I don't think it was right what he did, but he was the only person ever indicted in New York City for it. A week prior to his indictment, Bill de Blasio came out and said everyone in New York hiring should hire illegals. Michael owed, I think, $75,000 or $90,000 in taxes on unreported payrolls. He wound up owing $500,000 in taxes and penalties and fees. What people don't realize is that when they hear $2 million, how much money was Roger making? It's total nonsense what these people do. Going back to the January 6th party.
And Grimm was targeted because he was a conservative Republican congressman from New York City, the only one to meet that description.
Right. And he went after John Boehner, and he stepped on his toes, and Boehner didn't like it. They didn't like the fact that Grimm could work both sides of the aisle. He was able to get New Yorkers a lot of money for Hurricane Sandy, which the Republicans weren't in favor of because they didn't care about New York. Well, Grimm cared about New York, and it was why he won re-election so many times. It's why he won re-election under federal indictment. That's a different story. But going back to the January 6th pardons, the mainstream media, it seems like they'll do everything they can to try to push Trump away from this. Newsweek put out a piece this week. Trump pardoning January 6th rioters would be unpopular, according to a poll. Where have these people been, Roger, for the last 9 years? Do you think they give a damn? Do you think Donald Trump gives a damn what these people think in their Marxist Left fake polls? President Trump won over 50% of the votes. He told us, Roger, on the stage of the debate that he was going to look at pardoning these people. Do you think they think Trump gives a damn what they say?
No, clearly not. The sad part is that despite everything we have learned since then, and that we now know that the January 6th committee hearings were a kabuki theater which utilized perjury, coaching witnesses, hiding videos, hiding some witnesses, ramping up the volume on audios, using AI to make audio and video tracks. This was a made-for-television special. Yep. All the evidence of that, of course, has been destroyed by Democrats. But their narrative has fallen apart. Most Americans understand that this was indeed a Fedsurrection, as Dr. Darren Beatty, I think, the brilliant reporting at the Revolver has proven. Most Americans don't buy this, that this was the most violent attack on America since Pearl Harbor, except for, and they don't believe that a bunch of police officers died that day, because that's another lie, as you know. And most Americans don't know the full story of Ashley Babbitt, a decorated Air Force veteran, unarmed, harming no one, shot and killed without warning for no reason whatsoever, for trespassing.
Yeah. Going on pardons, too. Two other people I would love to see pardons, and I want to get your opinion on this because it's either very popular or it's very unpopular. I don't think there's like really any in between. And it's two people that I think know a lot of information that I would like to know, and I'd like them to come to America and tell Congress what exactly they knew and what was happening behind the scenes. Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. What's your thoughts on both of them, Roger?
I totally agree with you. Julian Assange is a great crime as being a truth teller. Yes. And he established he embarrassed the American political establishment, both Republicans and Democrats. He embarrassed the deep state. He embarrassed the neocons. He showed us the falsity and the corruption of their wars, and their conduct of government. And for that, he has paid a horrific price. No, he's not a Russian agent. There's never been any evidence of that. The left loved Julian Assange when it was George W. Bush's hump he was busting. But when he started exposing the Clintons and the Obamas, his truth-telling became too tough for them. So they destroyed him. Yes, he has been horrifically punished for practicing journalism. Oh, he publishes classified documents? Really? The Washington Post does that. Maybe you've heard of the Pentagon Papers case with the Washington Post. Or maybe you're familiar with some of the publishings of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. That's what real news organizations do. And of course, Snowden proves to us that our own NSA director, General Clapper, is lying. Clapper says, no, under oath, there's no metadata collection program going on against U.S. citizens, but that is disproved, as you know. So had Snowden not come forward, we would not know that. Now, Clapper is not prosecuted. They prosecute me when I actually didn't say anything that hit any underlying crime. In other words, to violate the False Statements Act while testifying before Congress, what you say has to be not only willful but material. In my case, there is no underlying crime to hide. There is no Russian collusion. There is no WikiLeaks collaboration. The government doesn't produce any proof at trial that there is. But in this case, Clapper is not prosecuted. John Brennan lies to a Senate committee about spying on a Senate committee that is investigating his illegal use of torture, but he is not prosecuted. Right. So when they say, "Oh, this is about retribution," no, it is about readjusting the scales of justice, rebalancing the scales of justice.
You know what? The double standard, that's so crazy. And this stuff, Roger, doesn't take a genius to figure it out. It all boils down to common sense. If I'm aware of a murder, Roger, we'll use that for example. If I'm aware of a friend of mine who committed a murder and I'm given evidence on it, and I have this evidence that my friend committed a murder and I don't say a word about it, and the government finds out after they catch him that I knew about it, I go to jail for aiding and abetting a murderer, correct?
Yes.
When the federal government breaks the law, Roger, whether you're collecting metadata or whatever you want, you're all of a sudden, you're a criminal if you come out and speak out against the government. I don't know if you're familiar with a man named Russ Ticey. We have him on the show very often. He was the man who blew the whistle on the Patriot Act and told us he was a former NSA senior intel analyst. He's a good friend of this show, and I would love to see him in the Trump administration. He was the one who blew the whistle on the Patriot Act, and they came out, Roger, and guess what they said? They said he's a Russian asset. He's an alcoholic. This guy's a drug addict. It's the same nonsense over and over again. When it comes to the federal government, you're committing treason because you're speaking out against the federal government. Isn't that a dictatorship that these Democrats all talk about, that they say Donald Trump is trying to do, but it seems like it always is against our favor?
Yeah, look, we have a two-tiered system of justice. I've been a victim of it. General Flynn has been a victim of it. Donald Trump has been a victim of it. There are certain individuals they set out to destroy. One of the inventors of cryptocurrency, Roger Ver, they're trying to extradite to this country to prosecute for failure to pay taxes that he doesn't really owe. And they hate him because he's a longtime supporter of libertarian and free thinking ideas, as well as cryptocurrency and so on. So, yeah, people get targeted the way they targeted Ross Ulbricht, the inventor of the dark web. Yes, unfortunately, this is why we have to end this weaponization of our criminal justice system. The idea that Kash Patel, who I think is uniquely qualified to clean up a troubled agency with a history of violating people's civil liberties and rights, the FBI, to say that that Kash Patel is going to harm the institution is laughable. Andrew McCabe, a man who never even served as a station chief, who became deputy director, says Kash Patel, a veteran federal prosecutor of intelligence crimes, a former member of the NSA staff, a former chief of staff of the Defense Department, that's a pretty big management job, is not qualified to be the head of and the chief counsel to the House Intelligence Committee is not qualified to head the agency is laughable. And when he says we'll take it back, it would take the agency back to its pre-Watergate days. This is just to point out, this is the FBI of James Comey, who launched an off-the-books operation to infiltrate Donald Trump's campaign with two good-looking women in a honeypot operation.
I would have fell for it, Roger.
Preceded the opening of Crossfire Hurricane, for which there is no legal predicate because they know the Steele dossier is a fraud. They know that the Russians did not hack the DNC. So this is the greatest dirty trick in American political history. This is nothing less than an abuse of power in which Obama and Biden, who's in the room, along with Susan Rice and John Brennan and James Comey and others, use the full authority of the United States government and the extraordinary capability of our intelligence agencies to use what they know is falsified evidence in an illegal effort to remove a duly elected president. It makes Watergate look like small potatoes. Now they argue no one should pay any penalty for these treasonous crimes. That would be retribution. Well, that's for a grand jury to decide. That's for prosecutors to decide. I've certainly read enough evidence on the public record of egregious treasonous crimes.
Yeah, my favorite thing, by the way, you're referring to George Papadopoulos falling for the two women. I'm glad I wasn't in that position because I would have probably fell for it too. The funniest thing about this whole thing is Liz Cheney comes out and says, oh, if you lawyers think you're going to come after us on the January 6th committee, just know there'll be penalties to pay. What the hell does that mean? You have no power.
Let's be very clear. Liz Cheney went to one of the witnesses for the committee behind that witness's lawyer's back. Coach that witness. That is, she's a member of the bar. That is a sanctionable action right there. When someone is represented, you cannot go directly to them. You must go to their attorney. So speaking of sanctions, there's somebody who should be sanctioned. Secondarily, she coaches her in perjury. So in this colloquy between Liz Cheney and witness Cassidy Hutchinson for the January 6th committee, former, I think, assistant to Mark Meadows, the White House staff, Hutchinson says the president ordered Mark Meadows to call Roger Stone and General Flynn on January 5th to find out what would happen on the 6th. And those final words are helpfully supplied by Liz Cheney. In other words, to find out what was going to happen on the 6th. There's never been any such call. There's no record of a call. There never was such a call. I've never talked to Mark Meadows on the telephone, or I don't think in any medium at all. I met him once in a green room. General Flynn didn't speak to him either. So she perjured herself. She later goes on, Hutchinson says, that Meadows, the president's chief of staff, was headed to a war room in the Willard Hotel to game plan the electoral college certification, I guess, and that she persuaded him not to go, but he later called Stone and Flynn for a download. False. I was never in any war room. I don't know about one. If there is one in the Willard, I was never there and unaware of it. I checked with General Flynn, either was he, and no such phone call ever took place. No download could take place for a meeting we didn't attend and know nothing about. So those are two examples of perjury, both, I would argue, at the behest of Liz Cheney. You can take an AI detection software and run all of their videos through it, and you'll see that everything has been manipulated. They have people, including me, saying things that we literally never said.
It's the playbook of the left, and we see it all the time. Speaking of perjury, I can't wait to see someone who's going to perjure himself, because I don't think we're going to see the end of soon-to-be former FBI Director Christopher Wray. We're going to take one more quick break here. We're talking with Roger Stone. When we come back, we're going to take up Christopher Wray is leaving the FBI, but he's trying to leave some friends in place before he leaves. We're also going to take up Pete Hegseth. Does he have the final votes to become the head of the Pentagon? And we're also going to take up Tulsi Gabbard, a person of the right who the Democrats say is a Russian asset. I want to get Roger's take on that when we return. Stay with us, folks. We're coming right back.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing, including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
Folks, we're back. We're talking with the great Roger Stone. And while we were in break there, I had something pop up on my Twitter. One of the folks that Joe Biden reportedly granted clemency to is a CCP agent who had 47,000 files of child pornography on his phone. The name is Shanlin Jin. So I'm looking forward to this list of other folks that we're going to find out were on that list. January 6ers are a bunch of criminals. Roger Stone's a criminal, but 47,000 files of child pornography. In some countries, that gets you the death sentence, as it should. Let me point that out. Roger, I want to turn to Christopher Wray, a man who's no friend of you or this country. Sources within the FBI say that Christopher Wray has begun promoting employees among senior executive service, those who serve within the Bureau's leadership. So the people who are the rot, the fish, rots at the head. These sources describe this as an effort to burrow establishment figures deep within the FBI. Sources said a plan is being formulated to delay new FBI director's entry into the agency for 3 to 4 months. So that being Kash Patel, with the acting director being one of Christopher Wray's good friends, Paul Abate. What's your thoughts on Christopher Wray? Do you think we see the end of Christopher Wray, or do you think the Republicans will actually do something for a change this time and hold these people accountable?
This depends entirely on the Senate confirming Kash Patel. So here's the problem, and that is those who understand the institution and the government and its rules in the early days, if whoever has authority over them doesn't understand the system, they can be thwarted, they can be stalled, right. The agenda can be delayed, derailed, demolished. But that won't happen with Kash Patel. He's uniquely qualified. He understands exactly who the bad guys are, and he knows what they did. Because he ran with John Ratcliffe, he ran the Russia collusion investigation. So you have the CIA director and the FBI director completely aware of what the FBI has done, including the illegal raid on Mar-a-Lago, the 6 a.m. raid on my home for a first-time nonviolent white-collar crime when I could have simply turned myself in. That little extravaganza, remember that CNN was conveniently just 25 feet from the front door. How convenient. Nobody tipped them off. No. It was, they got an award for their intuitive investigative reporting. Oh, this is great. So I was arrested at 6:06. At 6:11, a CNN producer texts my lawyer and says, your client has been arrested. And he says, for what? She sends him my sealed indictment.
Wow.
Sealed. Wasn't sealed until 11:30 that morning. It has no court stampings or time markings on it, but it does, when you go to the metadata tags, have the initials of the man who wrote it, Andrew Weissman, the most prosecutor, who obviously, therefore, is the leaker. Leaking an arrest warrant or a search warrant is a felony, but only the left is held, or only those on the right are held responsible for things they may or may not have done. On the left, we have a two-tier justice system.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Christopher Wray thinks he's going to do with hiding these people. We know who they are. You can look up any federal employee in some states, even state employee, and see where they're at, where their ranks are, how much they're getting paid. I'm not entirely sure what he's going to do. And he's playing games with the wrong person. He's playing games with Kash Patel. Kash Patel's a young guy. He's got plenty of energy to go through with these folks. And I know some of the people Kash is in tune with work-wise. And they're all smart people, triple-digit IQs, not double-digit IQs like these folks who are in the FBI right now. I mean, I really want to see Christopher Wray be brought before a House committee and something done about it, because things like the raid on your house, The Kristen Welker asked President Trump in that interview on Deface the Nation, or Meet the Press, it was rather Meet the Press, Meet the Depressed is what it should be, or Meet the Marxist, whatever you want to call it. And she says, why are you going to fire Christopher Wray? Do you like Christopher Wray? And Trump answered so simply, the man broke into my home and raided my home and approved agents to go in there with guns, or a former U.S. president, a leading candidate, and what we all knew, or at least you and I knew, to be the next president of the United States. How does someone get away with something like that, Roger?
I mean, look, President Trump said that he hired Christopher Wray because he looked the part.
Right.
I think the guy looks like he ought to be, at the craps tables in Atlantic City as a dealer, to be honest with you, or maybe 21 if it's illegal there now. This is a man who harassed parents for going to school board meetings to express their concerns about the curriculum being taught to their children. This is a man who harassed people for peacefully protesting the crime of abortion.
Right.
The outrage of abortion. This is a man who called those who choose to attend the Latin Mass domestic terrorists. So the abuses in this agency, to say that the agency would go back to its pre-Watergate days, I say it's much worse in its post-Watergate days, and that's the sad truth. The entire launch of Crossfire Hurricane.
Right.
James Comey trying to entrap the president of the United States. Rod Rosenstein agreeing to wear a wire to entrap the president of the United States. Who do you think would have wired him up? The FBI.
Right.
So, I mean, it is truly outrageous. This agency is out of control, and the president has nominated precisely the right guy to clean it up. And this is why Wray and his colleagues and so many others on the hard left who know they have broken the law and thought that they would escape consequences forever, beginning to worry about, well, maybe I should be lawyering up.
Right. Roger, I don't think he's just the right guy. I think he was the only guy for the job. And we were all sitting there worried when President Trump was maybe thinking about that rhino for Michigan, the guy who wears the wig, Mike Rogers.
Yeah, I think that guy got Romneyed, in all honesty. Got Romneyed. I'm hoping these stories about Ron DeSantis possibly, first of all, I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think Hegseth is going to make it. I'm 100% for him. I admire his fight. He didn't wither under fire. He's making the case. They're trying to do the full Kavanaugh on him. He doesn't seem to be working. So I'm with Pete. But if Pete should have to withdraw, which I don't foresee, there's someone said, well, the president should go to Ron DeSantis. Yeah, I don't agree with that. There are much, much better candidates. I don't think you should reward treachery. Yep. I think you should reward disloyalty. I mean, Ron DeSantis would never have been governor but for Donald Trump. And at 42 years old, he could have waited to run for president. Instead, he challenged the man who graciously made him and raised millions for him and dragged him over the finish line. Yeah, secured him the Republican nomination. It's a stunning and disappointing act of disloyalty, and I don't think it should be forgiven. When there are people like Senator Phil Haggerty could serve in the cabinet, for example. But I think the good news is Hegseth is going to make it because he is a fighter. This is precisely why the president chose him. I think Cash is going to make it. Brings us to Tulsi Gabbard. The attacks on her are nauseating. When they post him, when Kinzinger, that little midget, posted her, in Stalinistic garb, trying to claim she's not a loyal American, that she's not a patriotic American, simply because she doesn't want to continue to ship billions of dollars to Ukraine. This is a woman who served her country in combat in Iraq and Kuwait, putting her life on the line for her country. This is someone who today is a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. She's an accomplished athlete, surfer, shooter, and she completely understands the surveillance state, because when she criticized Kamala Harris, she found herself on a secret domestic terrorist TSA watch list, and she was under surveillance whenever she traveled, which was pretty much every day. How do you rationalize this for a 4-term member of Congress who served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the Armed Services Committee, and who's still serving their country in the Army National Guard, This is absolutely outrageous, as is any questioning of her patriotism.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You had mentioned the terror, it's called the SSS, what they put you on, the Secret Service. It's sort of interesting because when I found out Tulsi was on that, I thought back some years ago while I was working at Fox, where I got on a flight, and I've worked in the airline industry before, so I've passed background checks. I'm a licensed pilot, Roger. I have FAA certification, so I pass background checks federally. I go for a medical every year, so I pass that. And one day I go to get on a flight, and I've got SSS on the bottom of it, and it boiled down to they told me that it was because me and my father have the same name, which I knew not to be true because I have the fourth after my name. I'm John Foster the fourth. My father doesn't have that. We have two separate social security numbers. And how many people in America have the same name as their father and son? I didn't think it was any coincidence. I later find out that my phones were maybe tapped as well. It was a whole litany of things. I don't know what they thought they were getting out of me. I'm a pretty law-abiding citizen, aside from maybe speeding every now and then. And, I'm not sure what they were wasting their time on me with. Tulsi Gabbard, it seems to be the one that they've moved on to now because they know they're not getting Hegseth. We saw last week, Roger, they said, you were never accepted into West Point. They gave him a problem about saying he was accepted into West Point. We find out he was accepted into West Point. They never gave Dick Blumenthal any issues when he made up this whole story about being Da Nang Dick. I mean, the double standard, Roger, is just laughable at this point. You're talking about people with stolen valor as compared to a guy, even if he did say, Roger, he was accepted in there and he wasn't. Okay, it's a stupid lie. We now know that's not the case. He was accepted, but it's a stupid lie. You have people pretending to be in combat war, Roger, and it's okay.
Like I can't think of anybody other than say, I don't know, Tim Walz.
Right.
Look, this is pretty obvious. There's a famous saying, never send a letter and never throw one away. And I think that is this is a perfect example of Pete Hegseth quickly producing proof that he not only applied to go to West Point, but he was accepted.
Right.
So the great smear machine, paid for by our taxpayers, by the way, which is where this particular smear comes from, comes through through public broadcasting. It turns out to be yet another lie. Again, it's the full Kavanaugh. Because Tulsi Gabbard has expressed extreme concern about the safety of hundreds of thousands of Christians in Syria,
right,
where we saw the mass slaughter of Christians, including the crucifixion of 5-year-old schoolgirls, the last time Islamic extremists controlled Syria. Right. That does not make her not a patriotic American. It is outrageous. The president is entitled to his cabinet positions. She's highly qualified for this position based on her assignments in Congress and her service to her country. And at the end, I'm confident that she will be confirmed. I read a story, I'm not sure if this is accurate, that Bernie Sanders, who is considering supporting her nomination, she supported Sanders over Hillary Clinton because Sanders was the anti-war candidate. She didn't agree with Bernie Sanders about everything, but when it came to the most important issue in their party at the time, Hillary Clinton was the neocon candidate who took out Gaddafi. How well did that work out?
Right.
Now the same forces, the CIA and extremist elements with our funding, have taken out the government in Syria. I'm not arguing that Assad was a great civil libertarian, but I'm arguing that there are now hundreds of thousands of Christians whose lives are in danger at this moment. And that does concern me. Yes.
Yeah. I hear they're also starting an airline in Syria now too, which is scares the hell out of me if you think about it. You go down the list of things that are really bad. I think the foreign policy, neither of us are foreign policy experts. You're probably a little bit better than I am, but I think the world stage is going to be a lot different. Netanyahu put out a statement this week. He's saying to Iran, I think peace is coming a lot sooner than you all expect. And I think we will. I think we will maybe see peace in the Middle East for the first time in my lifetime, at least. I want to turn back to politics real quickly as we wrap up here. As it comes to these appointments in 2026, there's no excuses. If these senators, and I ask each and every one of you watching this show today to go look at how many Democrats voted against any of Biden's nominees. If you could find one, shoot us an email at info@loudobbs.com because I'd love to see it because I haven't found one yet. if any of these damn Republicans who are in the Senate, who are up for re-election in 2026, think they're going to vote against this or use it as some sort of bargaining chip, we need to hold them accountable because they can't get away with this any longer. Roger, I want to get your opinion on Mitch McConnell as he takes another fall this week in the Capitol. Does he run for re-election?
Let me say two things. First of all, when Biden became president, Democrats had 50 votes in the Senate.
Yeah.
Republicans voted overwhelmingly to give Biden his cabinet.
Yep.
Despite the fact that many of his nominees had blemishes, to say the least. But they will not afford Donald Trump the same courtesy. And our problem are not the Democrats who expect this kind of obstruction.
Right.
But there are deluded Republicans out there, maybe 3, 4, it's all it takes, who somehow think that they can thwart the will of the people in the last election.
Yeah.
I think that is an enormous error on their part. First of all, there's a new sheriff in town, and if a senator from, I don't know, let's take a state, South Dakota, doesn't vote for one of the president's nominees, Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert Kennedy, whoever it may be, well, then they will face a stiff primary in 2026 when they come up for re-election. This is not the old Republican Party. This is the new Republican Party of the middle class, of middle America, of the taxpayer, the party of peace, the party of prosperity, the party of security, border security particularly, and the party of justice.
Yep.
So it's an entirely new day, John.
Yeah, and we better hold it. We better hold them accountable, Roger. We cannot allow this. And even this shit that Joni Ernst is pulling, it's a negotiating tactic. But who the hell are you negotiating with? Who do you think you are?
Well, these senators have a very inflated importance, and of course, this is her 15 minutes. Otherwise, she's been in a national headline in a long time. I think she'll be committing political suicide if she doesn't support the president's nominees. Look, I've always had respect for Susan Collins. She does a lot of things that I disagree with, but I've always found her to be open-minded, and I would hope that she would give all these nominees a good look. Murkowski, I think, is hopeless. I don't think Collins is necessarily hopeless. She often does the right thing. She does study every issue. I've known her for 30 years. You can have a knee-jerk reaction, but I would hope that she will examine the nominations. I don't see us. I think in the end, the president will win, but only through grassroots activism. So when Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, a state where Donald Trump carried 77 of 77 counties, said that he may not vote for, I believe it was Kash Patel, his constituents went out of their minds. He was flooded with emails and text messages and phone calls. This is what MAGA people need to do. Contact your senators. You go online, find out how to contact them. Their email is there. Their phone numbers for their district offices, their home state offices, which is where I suggest you register your opinion. Do not use obscenities. Do not yell. Politely but firmly tell these senators that you expect them to support the will of the people and support the president's nominees. And if they don't, that they'll be held accountable at the polls in our system. I think that kind of grassroots activism, Markwayne Mullin now says he's voting for Kash Patel. Boy, that was fast.
Yeah.
So I think those kind of things are very important. People need to do it right now. Do it for Pete Hegseth today. Do it for Tulsi Gabbard. Do it for Kash Patel. Those are the hottest nominations out there. Hopefully, some of the president's better appointments, Elise Stefanik, who's a bulldog when it comes to fairness and exposing the corruption of the FBI, going to the UN. Hopefully, this nomination sails through. It's one of the president's best nominations.
Yeah, I agree with you, Roger. And for everyone who doesn't want to go online, we'll make it easy for you. 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. That's the Capitol Hill switchboard. You just ask to speak to your senator. And if you're in that state, it makes a difference because these senators' offices see where the calls are coming in from. So in other words, if you're in South Dakota and you're calling, they see that you're calling from South Dakota, it makes a difference. And it does, I think, move the needle a little bit. You look at these rhinos like Markwayne Mullin, total rhino. I think the guy's got a conservative record of like 51%. Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Shouldn't even be there in the first place, but it's a conversation for our show next week. Roger Stone, Great American. We'll see you next week back here on the Great America Show, brother.
Great to be with you. And folks who want to know more or get all your Christmas gifts, including my books, go to stonezone.com in the store. You can get The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, The Bush Crime Family, The Clintons' War on Women. It's all there. Stonezone.com. Great discount prices for Christmas. Check it out.
Folks, you heard the man. Do it. Stonezone.com. Roger, we'll see you next week.
God bless you.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us today. Please be sure to join us tomorrow for the Great America Saturday show. We'll see you back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs.